Is Russia gearing up to make the Alaska Putin-Trump summit a humiliation for the U.S. president? Is he even aware that Russia is hoping to embarrass him? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so I hate to say I called it, but, you know, when I'm right, I'm right. And one of the things that I said was that part of Putin's goal with this Alaska summit with Trump is to embarrass him, is to show to the other countries of the international community that Russia holds all the cards, that Russia can make the U.S. president roll over, bark, and play dead. And he seems to be doing so unbelievably effectively, sometimes to a point that's almost sort of comical. But we're going to break down why he's doing this and all the ways he's gearing up to do it. Let's go. So first off, according to the White House press secretary, the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska is going to be a listening exercise, the White House says. Her exact statement, right? It's going to be a listening exercise for President Trump. Right? The talks might not produce immediate results, adding that one-on-one discussions are, quote, part of the plan. But the strange part is, as we've talked about, 7 days ago, the plan was to have Putin and Zelensky meet, and the reward was going to be that Putin got to meet with President Trump. Sure, fair enough. That's usually how these kind of things go. But, well, the plan changed, and the plan seems to have changed because Putin demanded that it change. It's reportedly going to be held in Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Alaska, right? And Rubio was like, you shouldn't view this as a win for Putin. He says, for President Trump, a meeting is not a concession. But this isn't really how this works, because remember, when you already add conditions to things, and then you back off those conditions, you've already kind of flexed on the other person. And it's actually more embarrassing that he's saying it's a listening exercise because, well, let me put it like this. A dictator has just demanded that that the leader of the free world decamp from the White House, fly to Alaska, and then listen to him lecture him for 20 minutes. Is that not what a listening exercise is? Right? To tell him, oh, this is how it goes. This is what it is. So right there, it's already kind of weird. And like, how is the president's time so valueless that he's going to report to Putin just to listen to what Putin has to say, to get lectured at by Putin? Also worth noting, remember, there have been no less than 4 phone calls. Putin and Trump have talked over the phone an average of once a month. So why on earth does the U.S. president have to decamp from the White House, again, fly literally across the country to talk with Putin, something that he's done repeatedly over the phone, right? That alone should tell you something, right? Look at how many businesses in the U.S. have decided that remote work is done. But who exactly makes that decision? Did the workers decide that remote work was done? No. The answer is the CEOs did it. And that's because they're the CEOs. And one of the reasons they do it is because they literally are like, we want to make sure we maintain control over workers. Workers should understand that they work in the place and at the times of our choosing. I'm the CEO, I get to choose. So in this whole relationship, who has gotten to choose where the meeting takes place? Well, seems like Vladimir Putin. Now, what I also thought was pretty comical is this statement here. Trump suggests he'll know if Putin wants a peace deal with Ukraine soon after their meeting. Within 2 minutes, guys. He said, at the end of that meeting, probably the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made. Now, bear in mind, this is the exact opposite of what the president said literally 2 weeks ago, in which he said Vladimir Putin does not negotiate in good faith. Vladimir Putin talks a big game and then goes and bombs Kiev or does other actions that are clearly escalatory. So what changed? Why is Putin getting his 4th last chance from the president? And again, this sort of thing, this 4th last chance, is another symbol, right? Like, think about, again, the boss versus the intern. how many interns go when they have a drink after work and they go, man, if that boss talks to me that way one more time, I'm going to tell him to go stick it up his butt and I'm going to walk out of there. And his buddy goes, yeah, you should do that. And then when the day comes and the CEO goes, intern, hey, shorty, hey, nice shoes, loser, get in the conference room. We gotta talk. And he goes, yes, sir. Right away, sir. You're like, of course. That happens constantly. It is the biggest trope in any workforce. But it is because of the power dynamic. It is because it is who controls who, right? And so the fact is that Vladimir Putin gets to ignore Trump's ultimatums repeatedly, that the president himself gets to say, oh, well, this time I'm going to learn for sure. I'm going to really tell for surezies this time. I got to see if he's interested in peace. It's like, weren't you able to infer 2 weeks ago? You absolutely inferred that he wasn't interested in peace. Nothing has changed, but now you're like, well, I'm going to really find out this time. It is difficult to, it's difficult to see and respect the U.S. president when he can't maintain a consistent stance. But there's more to it than this, right? There's another layer to the humiliation objectives that Russia is pursuing with this, right? That again, the Trump administration is completely blind to. And that is, as we've talked about, the audience is the international community. And remember, the CEO can abuse the intern. Depending on how powerful the CEO is, he can impose a lot of abuse. So Putin's goal is to see how much abuse he can impose on the president and get away with it, because he wants to demonstrate to the world that Russia is the CEO and the United States is the intern, that Russia is strong, capable, and effective, and the United States is feckless and weak. Because if the U.S. can't stand up to Putin, then why would you be the U.S.'s security partner, right? Why would you do a trade deal with the United States, right? Let's say Russia goes to a country and the United States goes to a country and they say, listen, you can only do a trade deal with one of us, but it's going to be a trade deal and a security deal. Well, what country is going to partner with the United States? Russia's already shown it can get them to do what they want. Bark, roll over, come to Alaska, negotiate again. No, I won't talk to you. We have to meet face to face. That is going to send a message to these countries that say, listen, whose side do you want to be on? The answer is obvious. If you want to survive as a country, you need to be on the side of the winner. Like, are you really going to back up an intern against the CEO of a company? No, of course not. You're going to side with the CEO because he's got all the power. He can reward you in meaningful ways, and the intern, he just has to take it. And so part of the humiliation goal, I think, for Putin is to get in front of cameras and to lecture Trump about how Russia is actually entitled to Alaska. To say, actually, you think this America thing is yours? It's actually ours. We own America, right? And imagine bringing, again, a guest to your house and him going, your house is nice, but really it belongs to me. Technically, I should own this house. Technically, everything in this house should belong to me. You'd go, if you have a spine, you'd go, hey, buddy, this isn't your house. I think you should leave. Get the hell out, right? Unless that person's your boss, unless that person's a big dog, unless that person's somebody who you have to bend over, roll over for. And then you have to sit there and take it. And so I think that's part of Putin's ultimate goal here. And we can see them ramping up towards it. But let me show you. Here, for example, is all of these statements by Russian ultranationalists about Alaska, right? And it's kind of silly, right? Alaska was for those of you that don't know, Alaska was a territory of Russia in the 1870s, 1880s. 1867, Alaska was sold to the U.S. by Russia for $7.2 million, about $130 million in today's money. More than 150 years later, Moscow still hung up about it, right? Obviously, because they realized in 1860, Alaska didn't have anything of value. They're like, oh, there's some bears and it's real cold. Then they realized Alaska has a fair amount of oil. And they said, actually, man, we really screwed that up. Because again, it was sold for the equivalent of $130 million in 2024 dollars. Comically little, right? But Russia has been talking a lot about it, about this, what Russia calls this Alaska myth. This is the idea, for example, that in Russian schools, the official line is that Russia never sold Alaska to the U.S. Rather, it leased it for 100 years, and that the U.S. went and forged a contract that said otherwise. Alaska is Russian, according to Russian schools, right? Of course, Kirill Dmitriev, which is effectively Moscow's liaison to the Trump administration, called Alaska an American of Russian origin. Right? Some Russian patches, for example, even contain a statement that I'll take everything that's mine, implying, again, showing the large borders of Imperial Russia, including Alaska, right? There's also famously a plaque in Crimea left by the Russian military, or not the Russian military, that says that, today Crimea, tomorrow Alaska. So, again, one pro-Kremlin blogger said, for example, quote, "The meeting in Alaska has every chance of becoming historic, that it's proof that a multipolar world is taking shape and that Trump is consciously or unconsciously helping build it." So again, a multipolar world is one in which there is no dominant force, in which the U.S. is at best a peer to a country like Russia, which is just not the case, right? The problem is that one of the... Oh, here's another pro-Russian blogger that literally made up a flag of the independent Alaskan Republic of Russia. Sounds a little bit like the old DPR. Yeah, it sure is. Again, does this mean that Russia is actually going to invade Alaska? No. He's not going to. Right. But here's another billboard from 2022 in Russia that said, "Alaska is ours." There's literally a map showing Alaska. Alaska is ours. And of course, Dmitry Medvedev said in January of 2024 that Alaska would be returned any day. So I think Russia's not going to invade Alaska. That's not important for Russia. The importance is the humiliation factor of getting another foreign world leader. Right. It's one thing, right? The U.S. has said, well, we condemn the fact that Russia annexed Ukraine. But then imagine the U.S. president being unable to condemn Russia talking about annexing his own territory. Imagine having a president. It's maybe it's okay if Russia takes Alaska. Maybe it won't be so bad. The problem that we run into is, well, as you can see, Trump himself has said, "I'm going to Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday." Trump is not going to Russia. He's going to Alaska on Friday. Now, you may just say Trump just doesn't remember things so good anymore, which is actually kind of its own problem. As you might recall, the last president had some problems remembering things, and it went pretty badly for him. But it validates a specific claim that the Russians, again, are going to try to push via propaganda. And look, here is, again, Kirill Dmitriev, who is, again, the liaison between the Trump administration and other key figures. For example, he was known to be frequently in contact with Elon Musk. He's the head of the Russian Sovereign Wealth Fund. Note that he has been tweeting for almost a week about all the ways in which Alaska is Russian. He has a compilation of historic Russian Orthodox churches in Alaska. Here's another one, right? Here is another one, a 1860 map labeling Alaska Russian America with Sitka as the capital, right? And of course, here is rolling out an 1876 Treasury warrant for the purchase of Alaska and a Russian envoy's signed receipt, which again is part of this Russian conspiracy, this Russian fiction that technically they actually are the owners of Alaska. And here's again Kirill Dmitriev saying, Alaska, born as Russian America, Orthodox roots, forts, fur, and trade. Alaska echoes these ties and makes the U.S. an Arctic nation. And he's like, let's partner on stuff, right? Which is fine. Good. People are like, you must hate Russia. No, I just want Russia to not stop invading its neighbors, right? Russia can run its own country any way it wants. It just needs to stop invading its neighbors, paying bounties for the killing of U.S. soldiers, interfering in U.S. elections in a systematic and sweeping fashion. Right? So, but you can see, more importantly, that this is something where the Russians are gearing up to push this propaganda talking point. And again, it's not because they want to trick Americans into thinking that Alaska is for sale. It's not because they want to convince Russians that Alaska is totally going to be purchased from the Americans or conquered from the Americans. It's to show the international community who's really in charge. Because here's what I want to point out. You don't need to meet with Putin to tell if they're serious about peace, because here, from literally yesterday, is the Russian foreign minister stating their position that Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson and Crimea are enshrined in the constitutions and that they are never going to be negotiated away. So again, Ukraine has said swap for swap, territory for territory, dead in the water. Russia has just said territory for territory, dead in the water. And yet Trump is going to go, well, if I could look him in the eye, I'll know something. It's kind of a joke. It'd be a joke, again, if it wasn't our own country. So you can clip it out. You heard it here first. We're going to see Putin probably tried to, again, embarrass Trump by talking about annexing Alaska. And Trump is probably going to just not say anything. Just take it. Just take it. So anyway, guys, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you. And I will catch all you guys in the next one.